New Orleans as he tries to rally African-American voters. Well, as we mentioned, the president will give a speech at the National Urban League Convention. The group is out with a report called The Hidden Swing Voters, the Impact of African-Americans in 2012. Marc Morial is the president of the National Urban League. He's joining us right now from his home city of New Orleans. Good to see you, Marc. All right, so let's begin.
Hey, great to be with you.
Let's begin with this report. What do you mean by the hidden swing voters?
Well, African-American voter turnout in states like Ohio, Indiana, North Carolina, Virginia, and Florida, in many ways was crucial in the outcome of the election in those states in 2008. So to a great extent, African-American voter turnout is part of, I think, that category of voters that we consider to be swing voters, voters whose participation in the election is really going to have a big impact on the outcome. And we point this out because in 2008 we achieved something historic in this nation, and that is both white and African-American voter turnout was about equal. That was an important milestone for the nation compared to 2004, 2000, and previous years. So we wanted to highlight this with this report, indeed, as we gather here in New Orleans, prepare to listen to the president, but to talk about the value, the importance of voting, and to push back against all of the voter suppression initiatives that have cropped up around the country.
And you're talking particularly about like the voter registration, some changes in certain states about voter registration, right?
Yeah, we're talking about this sort of new wave of voter ID laws, cutbacks on early voting, restrictions on groups like the League of Women Voters or the Urban League in conducting voter registration drives in some states. It's a good sign that in many cases the courts have enjoined, blocked, or stopped some of these laws. In other cases, the Justice Department has intervened using its powers under the Voting Rights Act. But in a number of states, these laws are still in effect. We don't know what the state of play is. I say, and I think the Urban League says, that these efforts make it more difficult for people to vote. There's no evidence that they respond to a problem, and it's really anti-democratic and un-American.
When you talk about the, widespread, there was quite the boon in voter participation in 2008. Is it your concern that if there's apathy this go-round, that it's particularly in the African-American community, or it's widespread as well?
Well, I think Americans of all backgrounds, we've been through a very tough period of time with the recession, with the economy. People want things to get better. I always believe that once people focus in on the choice that they have in an election contest, a lot of times that occurs after September, after Labor Day, if you will, that there's going to be a surge in interest in this election. Every election is important. This election is crucially important. We think that people have to vote as a matter of responsibility, not simply as a matter of, well, am I jazzed up or am I enthusiastic? We think it's a responsibility for people to vote. That's what we're going to be talking to people about while we're here in New Orleans. I think that the enthusiasm will indeed be there, but I think it also depends in large measure on how the candidates campaign, how they conduct themselves. And so we are proud that President Obama will be here. We invited Governor Romney. We wish he would have accepted our invitation because we think that all candidates should talk to the people in America's urban communities. We think all candidates should talk to the African-American community and should talk to the voters directly in person. And the National Urban League Conference, we provide that opportunity. In 2008, John McCain and Barack Obama came. In 2004, John Kerry and George Bush came.
Well, won't Mitt Romney argue that he was at the NAACP convention and that he did address a significant representation of the African-American community in that address?
And he did, but one does not appeal to a community so important and so significant as the urban community and the African-American community with one drive-by appearance. I think you've got to make it sustained. It's got to be consistent. And I think that's what we're looking for. So I think it's beyond that. We wish he were here. The NAACP is an important organization. We speak to a more distinctly urban constituency in the civil rights movement. We think that we have a very important constituency. So my most important challenge to both candidates, the president and Mitt Romney, is to address the challenges that urban communities face, to make sure that the joblessness and the unemployment that we face is part of your agenda. And we look forward to seeing the president this evening here in New Orleans.
All right. All right. Marc Morial, thanks so much, president of the National Urban League. Always good to see you.
Fred.
Thanks for joining us from New Orleans. All right, the quest to find the law